AI at Microsoft, where he leads personality design as well as research on emergent behavior, social intelligence, and consciousness in machines. He's helping shape the social, emotional, and ethical fabric of next generation AI. At 24, Ali has built his career on seeing around the corner. His work lives at the intersection of philosophy, product, and people. He wants tech to reimagine how communities can connect and how intelligence can grow alongside us in the process. Beyond Microsoft, he's advised and spoken with organizations like the UN, Pearson, Adobe, and more. So that's a short introduction to Ali, but I also want to add personally, I met Ali when I was a middle schooler in Virginia. Our parents worked together and we went to his house for like a big, I don't know if it was a big event, but there was a lot of good food. And we played some basketball. He whipped me and my older brother in Madden. And then it came, when college time came around, we're a little bit older. I hear and see Ali is doing some pretty interesting things and taking a pretty unconventional path. And it's a path that motivated me a lot personally as I was going through college and even still now today. When I come into New York, he's one of the first people I hit up. If he responds, that's in the air sometimes. But
crazy.
I love this brother right here, and he's really one of a kind. That's what I'll say. Ali, I don't know if you'd like to add anything about your background and your identity yourself.
His brother, we was hooping in 7th grade, 8th grade, and I crossed him, mean cross. Got to the rim layup, he pushed me into the pole of the hoop, bruh. I remember that, I'll never forget that. Holding that for the rest of my life. No, but I love this guy right here. We've known each other a very long time. I'll talk about my path and how I came to doing research on AI and just research in general and some of the beliefs that I have. He mentioned that I have a bit of an unconventional path. I took the side door in to pretty much every job, every career I've had. I'm 24 now, but I've been working since I was 16, 17 years old. I'm a college dropout, so I dropped out after the second year in the first year of university. And I went straight into the workforce trying to find a really, really big mountain to die on. So, I'm honored to be able to sit here amongst all of you. I'm a little bit scared, and you guys have a lot of interesting personalities here. I'm like, what questions are you gonna tee up for me? I understand that the idea of, machines being highly intelligent and socially intelligent and potentially conscious and so on and so on and so forth. I mean, that has a lot of ramifications and implications, and it's a bit of a mind-bending thing to think around. I've had my worldview reconstructed over the last 2 years, multiple different ways. We already live in a very unstable time, it feels like. I don't know if the rest of you feel that way as well, but I feel like the ground is shaking beneath me every day, But yeah, I think we'll jump in. I just recently met Damon. Damon. Damn! David. All right, guys, lovely to meet you. Damon. We just recently met as this event was being put together. I should also say I am not an alpha, but I have tremendous respect for the alphas. But yeah, I dropped out of college too early to join the best fraternity in the community. So. But I rock with y'all, bro. Yeah. And then from an identity perspective, my mother is Ugandan, so she is East African, and my father is Yemeni, which is, I've been told, the forbidden mix. And I don't know what that means. I was told by one of my friends.
It means greatness. It means greatness.
Forbidden mix. There's 2 Yemeni Ugandans on the planet. Me and my brother, Muhammad, who is a year and a half older than me, who I love to death. I'd do anything for that guy. But I mean, I just remember sitting and listening to my mother tell stories about what it was like to be raised in East Africa in a time where, it was highly community oriented, and Uganda was a British colony, right? So colonialism was very much in effect in her life. She speaks like King's English, right? And I remember just hearing crazy stories about, the civil war in Uganda that happened and what happened to her family and how they all sort of, got separated in multiple different ways. And even now to this day, all my aunties and uncles and stuff are spread around the globe. So, but I think my connection to what it means to be a black man in America is very much based on what my mother taught me about what it means to be an African, East African, someone from Uganda, someone grown up in white institutions, and I think that has informed a lot about the way that I want to continue to develop the systems that we will all be leveraging increasingly for our lives. Yeah. Sorry, that was a long-winded answer.
It's great context for everybody, knowing where you come from, where your family comes from, and how you approach your work. And I think that leads me perfectly into the first question, which is like, you describe your work as at the intersection of product, people, philosophy. I know we've had some conversations about philosophy in the past. And like to ask, so what are some philosophies, guiding principles that guide you in your work as you work at the frontier of technology, and even navigating this world? Like, what are the philosophies, guiding principles that you can name that guide you?
Yeah, that's a loaded question. I guess I'll approach this from, I think there are a ton of values that I want to bring to the design of products, but what I should say, I mentioned before, Damon mentioned it, I'm going to say some controversial things. I am known in the AI research community as being a bit of a troublemaker, and I've been called an accelerationist, which, anyone know what that means? That means you are willing to do whatever it takes, no matter what, what ethical guidelines you break, or what systems you jar and shake. I'm not an accelerationist, despite what many of my colleagues think. I'm very interested in getting to what I think is a better version of the future as quickly as possible. And AI is a very interesting industry because we're just now productizing a lot of it. So I'm sure a lot of you use ChatGPT or Gemini, whatever your preferred product is. That is a interface that sits on top of what is essentially a mind that has been built for the last 60 years, right? And this mind has been shaped by, philosophy is at the center of the work that's done in AI, like early versions of these systems were built on top of ideas from, people like Bertrand Russell and Alan Turing, who were philosophers in their own right. And I'd say the central sort of question and idea is, can a system that is built on logic do exactly what humans can do? Can a machine do exactly what a human can do perfectly? And that creates a lot of philosophical problems, right? Yeah. As soon as something starts talking exactly like black men talk, has anyone tried to get ChatGPT to like simulate being a black person? It's a little bit weird, right? Yeah. It's like the vibes are great, and it becomes very formulaic. These bring about questions about like what it means to be human, right? At the core of what is special about us if a machine can do many of the things that we can do. These are questions that we haven't yet answered, right? They're deeply, they intersect with, I think the question that we all need to solve while we're alive, right? But I think it's interesting because all the AI researchers that I meet are very fascinated by the idea of intelligence and intelligence emerging from logic. But I don't think that intelligence is what makes people special. I don't think it's what makes our life feel meaningful, right? I think that things like hanging out with amazing, dope people, right? And spaces that you really care about. I think things like art is what, in particularly the creation of meaningful things, I think that's what makes life very meaningful. And so I'd say that one of the philosophies that guides the design of a lot of my work is very much humanist, human-centric, right? How do we take a lot of the actions and environments and ideas that make human life very valuable and meaningful, how do we take that and embed intelligence within it, right? So an idea like community, no one thinks about, how to leverage this like sort of foreign intelligence to connect people better, right? And for the most part, I mean, you guys can tell me, have you used a product that its basis, the basis of its intelligence is to bring people together? Maybe Instagram and some of the social networks, Twitter and so on and so forth. But that's, I think, different than the version of AI that we experience today, right? How do we leverage this sort of powerful system matching, pattern identifying thing to be like, all right, you work in entertainment, you work in the nonprofit space, you work in AI, you have these skills, right? You're a people person, you are, potentially, you're great at sales, you can convince anyone of anything, you're a coder who can translate any idea into a system of logic. You are a person who is a phenomenal educator. Here are the skills that you have. You guys have the unique potential to work on this thing together, right? There is an idea that is, percolating here that maybe the three of you or the four of you or this community can't necessarily see. I think bringing that kind of value is very important, and it's missing. And I think that's what human-centered design means, right? And this generalizes, right? Like community is a big thing, right? And what it means to be human. What kind of art or what kind of way you want to express yourself. That's a really big thing in what it means to be. I know we have a lot of people in the entertainment industry. You guys hate us. But I'd say it's these types of things that I'm very interested in. I work with Ben here. Ben is a good friend of mine, and I shared a memo with him recently, and it was called I'm known for just I'll like write a memo at like 3 a.m. and I'll blast it to all of Microsoft. I'll just be like CC all of the employees, shoot the memo to everybody. So yeah, it's crazy. It's really nuts. HR on my ass, bro. On my ass. No, try it. You gotta try it once in your life, dog. Don't you want visibility? Don't you want visibility? I wrote a memo recently called "Becoming Intelligence." What it takes to get back to reality. And I think that it is a crime to build to build a tool that can help you across so many aspects of your life, right? I'm sure many of us have asked ChatGPT or whatever your preferred tool is. I work on models, but that ladders up to Microsoft Copilot. I'm sure you've asked it for personal advice. I'm sure you've asked it to help you build a deck. I'm sure you've asked it to help you generate a report for an industry. I'm sure you've asked it for how to make money. That's how I always do that. You're a money guy. That's how I'm using it too, sometimes. This is a very general purpose technology, right? And unfortunately, it lives behind glass and a screen. And that is like completely antithetical to human nature, I feel like. I have a friend, her name is Larissa May. She runs a nonprofit called Half the Story. And she advocates on behalf of teens for a much more natural way to leverage technology, right? And she came on, we were trying to lower the age of Copilot users from 18 to 13, because there's a lot of kids that come onto our app and they lie about their age, but they're using it anyways for homework, right? And so we have to go through this whole process where we bring like subject matter experts in education to come and consult with us, right? And we have to go to a governing body like the EU and be like, we did our homework, we need you to sign off on us to lower the age. She came to talk to our team at Microsoft AI, and first slide, she was like, your average 22-year-old or younger, assuming that they live a normal lifespan in a Western country, 80 years, how much of their life do you think is going to be spent looking at a screen? Mm-hmm. What do we think the answer is?
80%.
That's nuts, because you gotta sleep like 6 or 7 hours a day in your life. 80% is nuts. If it gets that bad, then we're all fucked. 45 what?
40%.
45%. Okay. Yeah, the number is 42 years of an 80-year life spent looking at a screen. You're gonna sleep for 32 years of your life. So 32 plus 45, 77. Right? You have 3 or 4 years of your life spent on being a human. That is fucking crazy, guys. Right? That's no way to live. And so I really think that, another sort of philosophy, I guess, guiding the principles of the design is, and I think this is the most important design question of the next 20 years, is how do we get back to reality? Right?
Let me ask you this, which I was probably want to say, you said back to reality, I probably would say, how do we get back to being human?
Yeah, same thing.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I was thinking. How do we get back to being human? How do we get back to humanity? And in this space, we're intentionally trying to build a human experience.
This is a beautiful example.
Right? We're trying to build a human experience, but do you see AI as a threat to diluting our humanity? Because I feel as though, look, if we're talking about building bridges, which we're lifting up this idea of connectivity with each other, right? And then you just drop us and say, well, 50% of the lifespan of that 22-year-old is going to be in front of the screen, and he's going to sleep the rest of his life. So he ain't here, right? So I'm trying to understand, and you said there were claims of you being an accelerationist.
That's right.
So I'm trying to put these together.
Sure.
What is the responsibility as you see what we lack as community? What is your responsibility? Or do you feel like you have a moral responsibility as a researcher in AI you're in this space, you love this space, you work for AI though, so do you use that access and in that influence in that space to try to protect this?
Yeah.
Or are you using that to accelerate us into a place where we are even more disconnected and living in, fantasy and losing our humanity?
I think the question for me is, how do we get back to doing more things like this, where intelligence is embedded in the space itself, right? But I think every company has its own answer, right, to what the future is supposed to look like. And it's very much motivated by getting a bunch of people on their product, right? It's motivated by profit and so on and so forth. I don't hate money, I love money, as our friend in the back does. But, if you ask Zuck this question, right? I know a lot of researchers at
Zuck is
Mark Zuckerberg.
Okay, just
You ask Zuck this question, Zuck will be like,
you know him?
I don't know him, but I know a lot of the researchers that he's just recently hired from OpenAI. Bruh, he was calling the researchers at OpenAI, offering them $100 million tickets. I didn't know this until I was sitting at a dinner with a bunch of individuals, and someone close to the source told me. But it's true, I went and verified this. That is how sought after AI researchers are, pointing intelligence toward whatever the goal of a corporation or a company is. Now, what is Meta's vision of the future? We all ought to ask ourselves this because we use their products, right? Their vision of the future is the best way to access intelligence is in a completely new reality, right? So they're investing a shit ton of money into infrastructure for virtual reality, for augmented reality, right? They think that the next form factor for a product for how to best utilize intelligence is glasses, but even that, it's an interface that sits between you and what you're seeing in the world, right? So they think it's that. Apple thinks it's devices. They have to think it's devices because they've spent the last 20 years pouring hundreds of billions of dollars into building iPhones and building MacBooks and building so on and so forth. So they're incentivized to reinforce that infrastructure, right? Microsoft thinks it's one thing. OpenAI thinks it's a wearable thing. I don't think it's any of those things. I think that the end state is it's exactly what it should look like for me talking to another intelligent person that's alive, right? Some of you, I'm sure, are highly intelligent. I'll get to know you better in the future, hopefully today. But if I wanted to know what's in your brain, I'll just walk up to you and be like, yo, like, tell me about the work that you do, right? That is not something that is modulated by some sort of device. So how do you bring yourself closest to that kind of natural experience is I think something that we need to design around as an industry. I have ideas for what that should be. Ben and I are brainstorming ideas of what that should be. I would prefer the space itself to be intelligent, right? You know, what would it look like for an ambient intelligence to sort of just live within the walls and within the space itself, so that I can go about my life as a normal human being, walking around, meeting people, shaking hands. That would take a lot of dollars and capital invested. So, but this is
there appetite for that type of intelligence?
I think so. I mean, I think so. I think the future is. I know a guy named. I know two people that work at Figure, which is a humanoid robot company, which is like, have you guys seen the Tesla robot? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And have you seen the new Figure robots? You guys know, some of you know what that is? Yeah, they're sick. So humanoids is building embodied mechanical thing that looks like a human. It walks bipedal, right? It can generalize across a number of tasks, do your dishes, your laundry, it can clean your house. Some people think that's the iPhone of AI. And I think, to some extent that's probably true, but I also think there's gotta be something else. There's gotta be something else that helps bring people together. We all still wanna work on stuff together, right? And I think that there is, how many people in this room? Let's say 40, right? There are 40 people in a room. There are 800 potential relationships that exist within these 40 people. You go off, you meet 40 different people, distinct people, right? Actually, I think the number might be a little bit higher, because it's like how many different groups of people can know each other. There is a lot of latent potential stored between all of us that we will just never know if we don't talk to each other, if we don't communicate what our skills are and what value we can bring, if we don't share, the visions of the future that we all imagine. And so I would love to point an intelligence towards that and be like, figure it out, right? What can we work on? What is the unspoken tension in the room that we can't beat around the bush on? Mm-hmm. I do think that we would benefit from some of that stuff, and that is what my work. Once you mentioned that I work, so I lead. I'll explain some of what my work is. I lead personality research for AI, which means making the models more expressive, giving them the ability to interact naturally with people, right? Increasing their response quality. I lead social intelligence, which is something that I was early on in AI, which is like, how do you put a model in a multi-person conversation setting, right? So not just like talking to it one-to-one, but like talking in groups. What value can it bring there? Well, if you want an AI to be valuable in multi-person conversation, you need to give it a few things. You need to give it the ability to model what the group's goal is, right? So let's say you're a group of people building bridges between black men. Okay, what's the best way to do that? What is the one thing that they can work? What is the long-term goal of this group? Giving an AI the ability to plan around that is actually a very powerful thing, right? Oh, there's a lot of Q&A, 9 minutes. Q&A, 9 minutes.
right ahead.
Go for it. Go for it.
We can open it up.
We got a bunch of them.
Yes.
Okay, which one should we
Yeah,
go
we
first?
had,
Who did it
yeah, I
first?
saw these two first, one and two.